Hello, y'all. Welcome to the Coach Replay Show. My name is Kim Ramadan. I have two special guests today from the Connecticut Teacher Residency Program. So Marlene is the director and Ushawnda is the managing director of residency. So welcome, ladies. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Ushawnda Mitchell, Managing Director of Residency. I work closely with our residents and coaches in our program.
Hello, everybody. Marlene Megos. I'm the Director of the Teacher Residency Program and excited to be here with you, Kim and Ushawnda.
Yes. So it's great to meet you all. I know you are longtime users of Sibme, and this is the first time that we've met, and I'm excited to talk about this program in particular. And so what is your mission? Let's start with what is the program what is it? What is the mission that you have in place for your teachers there in Connecticut?
So the mission of our program is to diversify the teaching staff across the state of Connecticut. Currently, only 10% of teachers are identifying as people of color as compared to over 50% of our students. And so what we want is to make sure that our teacher population reflects our student population. So our program is really to design not only to increase the number of teachers of color across the state of Connecticut, but also to reduce some of the barriers that come with becoming a certified teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of that is really important. Number one, that our teacher population is reflection of our student population. Why? And I think we all know it's important for you all in Connecticut. Why is this such an important thing? Why is this a mission that you all have?
So it's important for a lot of reasons, as you've alluded to. There is research that supports increasing diversity, increases the success of our students. So thinking about whether it's dropout rates in the long term, the disciplinary actions that happen within schools and being able to decrease those disciplinary actions, having increased student achievement, those are all outcomes that have been shown in research for different student populations. Whether we're talking about students of color or other students, all students can benefit. We also feel really strongly that our students need role models and our students need various perspectives. So whether it's our students of color being able to see themselves in our teachers, or our white students who are able to see other figures of authority in the classroom, it's really important to us to be able to change who's leading our students.
Yes. Ushawnda, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think just to add a little bit more about the barriers that lead to certification and really focusing on that. So it's not just about getting recruiting, our teachers, but also making sure that we have the supports in place to keep them there once they have enrolled into our program and then start their first year of teaching. So making sure that we have the opportunities and supports in place to support our residents once they start teaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what are some barriers that you see, whether it's initially entering into teaching or kind of retaining teachers once they're in the program, or if the program didn't exist, what would some of those barriers be that you all are kind of taking care of?
So one of the main barriers, I'll talk about sort of the initial ones that our teachers face. We recruit from staff that may already currently be working in schools or already have bachelor's degrees and want to become an educator. And many of our adults find it difficult to find the extra money to go back to school. Mm-hmm. So having those tuition payments is a huge barrier for people who want to become teachers, because you need to be able to do a master's degree or a bachelor's degree to be able to get certified in Connecticut. The other thing is being able to take off time to do the student teaching that's necessary to become a teacher. Mm-hmm. So that, again, is a financial impact on somebody who has to still pay their rent or their mortgage, put food on the table, etc. So people can't do the student teaching required to become a teacher. So our program tries to take care of those things. One, we have a no-cost model for our candidates, and that's through grant funding and district partnerships and our regional service center partnerships that we're able to provide our program at little to no cost for anybody who participates.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that is critical is the student teaching aspect and not getting paid while you're serving full days in a school.
Mm-hmm.
So we take care of that through our district partnerships by providing a salary and benefits for our residents as this program, and that they serve in a residency instead of a student teaching, which is a full year as opposed to 12 weeks. And throughout that full year, they get paid an hourly rate and have access to benefits during that time. So those are two barriers that we try to take care of off the bat in our program.
Yeah, and I think the impact there is really great. I do some adjunct work here in Chicago, and one of the biggest things for my student teachers is, what am I going to do? You know, I have this job where I'm working at a daycare full time, and how am I going to take time off of that to student teach? And sometimes that gets in the way so much, like you said, they don't finish the program at all. So that is a really great thing that you all are able to do for them, and a great barrier to kind of get out of the way right away. Yeah. Ushawnda, anything you want to add to that, or maybe a little bit about the barriers in the program that without the program being in place, might be in the way?
Yeah, so one of the things that, just to go back a little, as this program was being planned for, like, we thought about all the barriers that people of color may face when they are enrolled in this program, and then what are some things that we can do and plan for before starting it. So that's what from that lens, we try to figure that out ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so another one is looking at research, and research says that people of color tend to struggle with the certification requirements and the assessments that comes with becoming a certified teacher. And then, so what could we do knowing that that may be a struggle for our population? And so we put things in place to eliminate that barrier. So a lot of traditional programs, you are required to pass certain assessments before you even move to that phase of student teaching. So we eliminated that barrier. We started with making sure that our residents come in once they've been accepted to our program, and they are required to take an assessment, their praxis assessment. And for elementary ed, there's 4 assessments, right? So they take that ahead of time. That gives us an idea of where candidates are. Some candidates are able to come in and pass those assessments right away before their first class, which goes to show, like, that's not an indication necessarily of them being able to be great teachers, but it is a requirement. So having that in place and knowing, like, this is where our residents are currently, and then as a program, what could we do to plan to put the supports in place so that they are able to pass their assessments once they've been enrolled, once they start their actual program. So we do a few things. We align our testing schedule with courses that they take. So they have to take their assessment by a certain period once they've had that course. For example, if they take their reading classes, right after that, they take their certification, reading certification assessment. And then that way that, eliminates them having a bunch of assessments to take towards the end of the program once they've completed everything.
Right.
So basically, we've taken what we've learned, what we thought of ahead of time when it comes to certification. And then also, like, as we're going into our 5th cohort coming up. So what have we learned from cohorts 1 through 4 that's going to help be beneficial for our next group of residents that are coming on board? So providing boot camps, constantly looking at data to see where they are and what we can, provide, what additional support we can provide. Having check-ins with our residents, like, where are they currently in, based on our timeline that we have set. So it's just constantly monitoring the data and looking at what their individual needs are, as well as needs as a group. So I think that's one additional thing that we do once residents are in our program.
I'm not sure I asked this question. How many do you have for each of those cohorts? How many teachers are in your program for each of those?
So our first year, we have 11 residents.
Yep.
Our second cohort consists of 14 teachers. Our third cohort, we have 40. And we are currently right now, our fourth cohort, they're in the residency phase. So we have 3 prior cohorts that are in their first to third year of teaching. And so one thing to celebrate is that we have 100% retention rate. So all of those individuals are still teaching in the classroom. And currently, like I said, we have our fourth cohort, and I believe we have 43 residents, Marlene. If I'm not mistaken, 42 or 43 residents.
Yeah, that's great. And so over the years you've grown, but you've also been able to retain 100% of those teachers, which is a huge shout out to the program itself and what you all have built. I like how you said that, I think that practice is another thing I hear about a lot, is how difficult that test is. And often we're waiting till the end to figure out, like, this was really hard and now I'm in a scramble to try to pass this. Which can be very stressful. And obviously then you have test anxiety on top of everything else, because you're trying to just pass this test, which they're pretty challenging as well. So I like that you have those supports along the way for them.
A lot of, again, in that the traditional program, which I went through myself, like a lot of times, like you have people that are struggling, right? And then automatically, how many people are you eliminating from the field of education by saying, like, you can't move forward if you don't pass that test? And that was me, right? So I lived that, I know that, understand that. And eventually I did pass, and I was able to be in a classroom for over 15 years before starting this role. But I just have to remind residents sometimes when they have that testing anxiety and they're struggling and they're feeling like, well, maybe this isn't for me, that the test just does not define you as a teacher, as an educator. It's just a barrier that we need to figure out the supports that you need to get over that.
Yeah, I took the MAT at one point, I think for my master's or my PhD, I can't remember which one, and I scored terribly, and they let me in anyway because they were like, "We know you're a good student," and I ended up getting my PhD. It's not a matter of not being a smart person, but that can definitely be a huge barrier. So kudos to y'all to figuring out how to get that kind of out of the way. The Coach Replay Show is about it. A lot of our audience are coaches. So I'm interested in hearing what coaching looks like for your program, and how, it may differ a little bit for your program versus a coach in a school, or with a different program that's not the Connecticut Teacher Residency Program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So in our coaching model, our coaches work not only with our residents, but also with their mentors. So that is a little bit different. Usually coaches are coaching full-time teachers, right, in the classroom. So we're coaching the teacher in training, but also as they work daily with the mentor teacher. So our coaching focuses on instructional practice, focuses on, learning outcomes, but it also may focus on the relationship between the two, the mentor and the resident, and how one might give feedback to the other. The dispositions regarding coaching, about how the resident may be receiving the feedback, and then how to actualize those, what comes out of our coaching conversations in the classroom between the mentor and resident. So our coaches come in on a 6-week cycle. They have multiple visits, either in person or using Sibme. And between those times, the resident and the mentor are actually working, and the mentor's doing a little coaching. So our coaching model helps to strengthen the coaching and the feedback that's given to residents, as well as support the resident in achieving the learning outcomes that are necessary for teaching.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that as well, we need to make sure that our coaches are, like, culturally competent and being able to help our residents navigate through some of the issues that they may come across, again, in environments that may not be what they're used to, right? Like, so because our population, the teaching population in Connecticut, well, not even just in Connecticut, across the country, like, is majority white. We want to make sure that we have coaches who understand like some of the things that they may be going through and can help them navigate issues that definitely come up a lot more often than people may know. And then also help our residents find their voice in being able to address some of those issues, because once they get into that first year of teaching, and even though we have supports in place for the first 3 years, how can we as a program and as a coach, like, help them be able to navigate those issues on their own once they're out there on their own. So through the residency, once they have that coach there, they can help them navigate through those issues by having discussions with them, helping them, maybe even meeting with the mentor if the resident doesn't feel comfortable addressing those issues on their own. But definitely making sure that our coaches are culturally competent and have that background.
Yeah, I love, go ahead.
No, and so really in working through our coaching model and having lots of discussions about, as they come up as needed, about race and racism and microaggressions and other things that may come up, comfortability for residents, inclusivity, those types of topics. Through those conversations, we hope to not only increase the residents' ability to teach, but increase the mentor's ability to be more culturally competent.
Yeah. So you're really coaching two people in that instance, which is not usually how coaching works. I worked for a long time with a beginning teacher program. We would go in, we would support people, and a lot of them this was their second career, so they maybe weren't licensed yet in North Carolina. But I often worked with just that teacher, that beginning teacher, not necessarily the mentor, but the mentor was there all the time with the teacher. They were the ones that were side by side every day. And how important is it that that relationship is strong, but also that the mentor truly can support that teacher in all those ways that you're describing. So you're really building two people up, which is affecting ultimately two different classrooms at some point, and then just more and more students, which is really fantastic. What are some common things, if our audience was wondering or wanted to know, what are some common things maybe that your coaches are working on, especially when you're talking about culturally competent areas? What are some common things, conversations that they're having, would you say?
I think that,
go ahead.
I think that some common conversations that come up when it comes to that is, and I know this sounds like I'm clumping it all together, but it really is around like finding their voice, like when those microaggressions are happening, when a mentor may say something that they don't really recognize as, kind of racist or a microaggression.
Or racist. Yeah.
I think that a common thing is really just coaching them around finding their voice to address those issues. And like I said, it's very common that it happens, but I always say, like, when you know better, you do better. So just helping them understand, like, it's not okay.
Yeah.
And it needs to be addressed immediately, right? So it doesn't happen again, because a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a power dynamic, right? Like, our residents are coming into the classroom of a teacher who majority of the time, like I said, is a white female, right? And so they may not feel comfortable or feel like they're going to get in trouble if they say something, because one part of our program is that, this is a district that they're going to be committed to working in for the next, 3 years or hopefully forever, right? Like the district is investing in them. So a lot of times they don't want to say anything because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to mess that relationship up with that district. So it's really like a lot of times around when it comes to that cultural piece, trying to help them find their voice so that they can speak up for themselves with the understanding that like, this is what you're going to be working like, again, for the next, this is your career now, right? Like, so these things may happen in the space that you're going to be working in that is not so diverse. And you really need to be able to find your voice and speak up.
Mm-hmm. Whereas opposed to if this didn't occur, if we didn't have coaches that were going in and supporting teachers in this way or mentors in this way, then there would be a silence there, right? That just really shouldn't happen. And so preventing that from happening, maybe first recognizing, no, this is racist, this is a microaggression, but now what do we do about it? And how do we find your voice? So
definitely. When we're hiring coaches or we're hiring anyone that's part of TRP, like we have questions around that, right? Like, because we want to be able to see like if individuals are going to be able to really deal with these issues that come up when it comes to our, like, that's the mission of our program.
Right.
So for our instructors, it's the same thing. Like, we ask those type of questions. If you can't even say the word anti-racist, like you're probably not a good fit for our program. So we want to make sure that our not just our coaches, but everyone that's involved with TRP are able to follow our mission.
Yeah. Marlene, anything to add?
Yeah, one of the other areas that our coaches are pretty competent in and help our students and mentors navigate is the curriculum, and thinking about, what is the representation of people within the curriculum? What are the books that they're reading? Are there books that represent the students? And, what are the conversations that need to be had around those books? In terms of investigating other people's cultures and seeing other children or other adults and how their storyline plays out in these books and novels and science class. So being able to support our residents in transforming the curriculum or finding curricular resources that are more representative.
Yes. Yeah, fair. And I think that's a part of it too, being able to see people that look like you in front of you, or that don't look like you in front of you, but also in what we're reading and what we're studying and what we're and that's obviously a very hot topic here in the United States, are what we're reading and things that are not being allowed in schools. And so it's important that as a teacher, we know how to access that curriculum so that our students have access to that curriculum. So that is a really great point as well. And so I think the last question that I have before I open it up to final thoughts are, what supports do you put in place for students as they take on the role of teachers? And you talked about how there is this 100% retention rate. So talk a little bit about the supports that you put in place for students as they start to take on the role of that teacher.
As part of our program, we ask the resident, the district, and ourselves, TRP, we all sign a 3-year partnership agreement. So the idea is that the resident goes through their residency in that district and then will serve 3 years on the in that partner district. And we have multiple touch points throughout those 3 years, as well as providing professional development and other ways for our cohorts to come back together and connect. I'll leave it up to Ushawnda to talk about our affinity groups, but because of sometimes the isolation that goes along with teaching as a person of color in a majority white staff, there needs to be some opportunities for our students to get back together and really talk about their experiences and the like. In addition, the professional development is tied to the needs of beginning teachers. So making sure that we're providing them with the support and professional development that may come up. We also work with districts by identifying supports in their district to be able to tailor the needs to the teacher in the classroom. So whether it's coaches in district, whether they have somebody that works with first year teachers, being able to have those conversations with the district so that the teacher feels supported. And because they are serving their residency for a full year, in that year, they've oftentimes developed close relationships with people in the district. So making sure that that they're connected and continue that connection throughout the first 3 years so that they feel more capable, more confident, and more connected within the school community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll add 2 other things that we try and do. And one of them is during their first year. So they've completed their residency, they're moving into their first year of teaching. We provide them with a sponsor teacher. And a sponsor teacher is basically like a mentor teacher. We just use the word sponsor teacher because during the residency, we have mentor teachers. So during their first year, they have a sponsor teacher, and that person is usually someone that either works in their school or the district that's familiar with it, and maybe their previous mentor teacher if they are not currently a mentor, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just someone that they can meet with a few times a month and ask questions, clarifications, get help with anything that they may need. Sometimes if you're in a brand new school and, many times I know for my first year, like sometimes people just automatically think that you know where to find things and, and you may not, right? Like,
you don't know where the stapler is. You don't know where anything is. Yes.
Yeah. So that person is a person that they can reach out to say like, hey, where do I go to find this particular thing? Or so they have a sponsor teacher for their first year, which is always helpful. Another thing that we provide is monthly affinity groups for our teachers. And that honestly, I run those affinity groups each month, and it's like a dine and discuss type of setting. And what the feedback that I've received from our residents is like, they don't know what they would do without that space, right? Because it's a safe space for them to come and share like common experiences or questions that they may have. We read articles around education and just, really allows them to feel connected, right? And not lose that connection. So each month we meet during the fourth Monday of each month, we have that opportunity to come together and just discuss. Sometimes there's tears, right? But the one thing I always want to make sure is that they're not leaving teaching, right? Like, so whatever you're going through, like, how can we support you to get you through it? And know that like everyone in this group, out of all the people that are here, like we're here to support you, and maybe someone else is going through the same thing and they can share how they got through that particular thing. So I think that also helps with our retention of our teachers, because like I said, we want to make sure not just put them in a classroom, but like make sure that they have that support that they need to stay there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of like wraparound support for people. It's not just one person, one coach. There's somebody in your building to tell you where the stapler is and help you with the paper jam, because it always happens and you don't always know who to turn to. But also sometimes I feel like, I mean, I've been coaching for 12, 13 years now. I've lost track. And I think sometimes it feels more like counseling or therapy, and that's what people need sometimes is a counselor or therapist. It sounds like your affinity groups are just that, where you really just have a chance to just be a human, say this is hard, like this is hard. And I think it's okay to say that because if people didn't care, they wouldn't be crying, right? They wouldn't be upset. And it's because they do care so deeply, and that's what we do as educators. It's hard to explain to people who are not in education why we're so passionate, but it's because of all of those reasons. So, but yeah, your goal of, keeping people in the classroom, we know this is difficult, and it does get easier as the years go on. It's really hard to understand that when you're starting out. It really is difficult, but you change grade levels or you change schools, you feel like a brand new teacher all over again. So it sounds like you all have some really great supports for people. Well, y'all are making me want to come down to Connecticut Teacher Residency Program and say hello, especially on a Monday night. But as we wrap up today, we've shared a lot about what your program is all about and what your mission is and how you support your teachers. I'll give each of you a chance. What's one takeaway that you want people, or final thought that you have for our audience today?
I would say that, for me, I'm thinking we hear a lot nowadays about, diversifying our staff. And in Connecticut, it's been a common issue, like we've been trying to do this work for years. And so we have like recruitment fairs. I mean, I was in the classroom for 15 years. I remember going to that recruitment fair and talking to districts and them saying, oh, come over here and work with us, or leaving one district and going to another. So we're constantly like swapping people, not really increasing the number of teachers of color. So I think that we have a program here with the Connecticut Teacher Residency Program that's designed to do just that, right? And we are producing teachers of color across the state of Connecticut. So I think my final takeaway that I want to leave people with is, like, when you have something like this program that's in place and you really are all about diversifying your staff, like, invest in that, like, look into that and support programs like ours, because we are doing the work, and everyone that's on this team, it's a small but mighty team, and we're really passionate about it. Mm-hmm. So if you give our program a chance, you won't be disappointed. And if you're not in Connecticut and you're listening somewhere else and there's a program similar to ours, like, if you really want to diversify your staff, like, show that, like, invest in programs like that. Even if it's just going to listen to it, to learn more about it, like, put the effort in to make that happen.
Excellent. Marlene?
I think really just piggybacking on that and what Ushawnda said, each and every one of the people who works for the Teacher Residency Program knows their why, and their why is to support our candidates in becoming teachers. And as teachers, we all have good days, bad days as coaches, right? Some things don't always go well for us, but it's really important for us to show up, be present, be as positive as we can to be able to support future teachers in a continuous cycle of improvement, right? Every teacher that we deal with, whether they've been in schools for many years or not, has growth. And if we come at and work with whoever it is that we're working with, our future educators, in a supportive way and a way that allows them to attain and capitalize on their strengths, really, and build those strengths, we're going to make a greater profession. We want to diversify our teachers in Connecticut, and we want to make sure that we have teachers for our students, right? And it's really important, especially now, to maintain that positivity and be a support to those teachers who are either entering the field, feel stuck in the field, or are ready to get out of the field, so that we can continue to strengthen our schools and support our kiddos who are trying to learn.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time today. You can check out our takeaways at learn.sibme.com. We are on all your social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Check us out. It was great to meet you both, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.